What is the poorest financial decision you have ever seen somebody make? My dad saved like heck his entire life. Staunch minimalist. Had about $1 million saved by his 60s when my parents divorced. My mom, a shopaholic, fought him in court and received $800K from him, which he just let her have because all he wanted to do was live in a tiny house he already owned outright and spend the remainder of his years traveling in the cheapest countries. He's still self-sufficient to this day at age 75 and has been to around 45 countries in the last 10 or so years. My mom spent the $800K in less than 5 years. She bought nothing but garbage, collectible angels, a bedroom suite, a house she couldn't afford, just shopped and shopped. She yelled at me this week for refusing to pay her electric bill, which is about to be disconnected. Your poor dad. I hate stories like this. He did the right thing and had it all ruined. I used my inheritance to buy a $14,000 camper trailer, took it out on its maiden voyage a week later and flipped it in a pop-up snowstorm. My husband said he added it to the insurance the day after we bought it. He did not. Trust, but verify. My sister-in-law and her husband have 3 kids and make $1.5K a month. He's the only one who works and she refuses to. Anyways, they always be about having no money and have GoFundMe pages up, but she spends crap tons on learning about her ancestors. She even hired a professional genealogist at whooping $50 an hour. She's spent $1.50K so far in 6 months. They got that tax refund money, gotta blow it on something. Meanwhile, her kids need dental work, wear clothes with stains and holes, and they live in a 2-bedroom shack in the ghetto, and their car is 20 years old and hardly runs, but hey, at least she knows she's related to someone from Iceland 100 years ago. So stupid. This one is my favorite, it's so random and sad. A friend of mine who is very bad with money and his girlfriend bought some sort of water filtration system from a door-to-door salesman. He has to pay something like $300 a month for this filtration system. He was all stuck because it came with a free set of pots and pans. Fast forward a year and his girlfriend has broken up with him, moved out of the house, and he's had to sell his home because he can't afford to live there. The water filtration system is now sitting in a storage unit where he still pays $300 a month for it because he's on a 2 or 3 year contract. Sorry, the details are fuzzy. We have great water quality in my area. Jeez, and I forgot how much my Brita cost because I bought it so long ago. Probably $20. They still make filters for it, so I'm happy. Door-to-door sales can go to heck. Know a dude who recently found out his girlfriend is pregnant. He is in school and for one reason or another she can't work, so they are living off school money. He decides to make ends meet. He is going to start selling weed. Pot dealers as a profession in our state have been dead for almost 5 years, and the dude is trying to sell it at pre-legalization prices. Haha, tell him to consider moving to a college town somewhere in the plains states like Oklahoma, Iowa or Texas. He'll get away charging $20 G if he's willing to take the risk of serious jail time if caught on mayo. Had an unemployed friend inherit a boatload of money when her dad died. Instead of investing it into getting a job, she took it easy for 10 years. She was homeless living in a van when the money ran out. Man, if the money was enough for 10 years she wouldn't even have to get a very hard job and let the $ get invested, so she could siphon off a portion of the dividends. Spend all of $401K on a glass-bottom boat business, with a criminal business partner, and a 25-year-old boat. I hope it makes a great movie someday. Should have invested into a shrimp boat in Louisiana. I knew a guy who took out a $5,000 loan and bought clothes and other useless merch. He then proceeded to take out another loan for similar reasons. When asked why, he said he thought it was free money. My roommate is renting a PS4 from a rent-to-own shop. He's paying $80 a month and he's had it for about half a year. He's put, loosely, about $450 into it. Well, he's selling some of his video games and was deciding whether to keep it or return it. I asked him how much is left to pay, to determine if it's worth keeping. He still owes $450 on it. He still, after paying nearly $500 for it, owes more than a PlayStation costs to buy in the first place. A PS4 is like $300 new, and the one he's renting is used. You need to slap your friend for me. That hurt to read. I had a friend cash out all of his stocks and savings so he could spend $100K on his own online marketing business. He had no prior experience and no clients lined up. He had about 4 clients over the course of 2 years, one of whom never paid him. Out of all the ones here, this one made me sad. I watched a sorority sister sink thousands of dollars into an MLM. When that one flopped and left her with like 5,000 unsold leggings, she took out a loan to invest in yet another MLM to recoup her costs from the first one. So I guess that counts as 2 extremely poor decisions. When I found out the cost it took to buy into LLR, I almost fell off my chair. Those women worked for free for months to earn back the initial investment, then maybe earned a few dollars an hour in actual sales in the end. LLR was brilliant in their scammy marketing. Have someone pay you to do all the work for free. Thousands for crappy leggings and maternity-like shirts. I watch a friend of mine give his wife off 1 year. They had known each other for all of about a year and a half at this point. Power of attorney right before deployment. By the time he got 8 months later, she was 6 months pregnant and had maxed out 3 credit cards in his name and had the divorce paperwork ready. This seems like an all too common theme with soldiers who go on deployment. I know of at least one guy who lost it all at the casino. Was standing there with my GF and this dude had monster stacks of chips at the roulette wheel, $100K to $500K worth. Easy. 5 minutes after I took a pee, when I came out of the can, the guy was holding no chips. I crap you not. My GF said he lost everything in one spin and we watched him cry his eyes out. It was sad. Guarantee that was everything he had left and had to win based on the long odds it hit. Sad really. Friend was told by his dad to always replace his used car every 3 years, even if it is still working just fine. Why? Now, because of constant trade-ins that are less than the value of the original loans and new used cars, new loans stacking up, and poor credit. My friend currently owes $35,000 and drives a 2009 Toyota that needs a lot of repairs. His first car was a perfectly fine Honda in perfect condition that, I believe, he could have paid off easily and would still be driving today. This friend also put his dad's name on his saving account with the full awareness that his dad is not trustworthy, and now that account has been emptied and given to his dad's mistress. And Hondas last a long freaking time, so he would have been good with that for years. I know a couple who spent $125,000 on their wedding. Their marriage lasted less than 4 years. They ended up arguing over who had to pay which part of the debt. I didn't want the freaking flowers in the first place. During their divorce settlement negotiations, they were each still paying for the first wedding when they married their second spouses. $125,000. What the actual frick? My dad dated this chick that, prior to dating my dad, married this older man that was a millionaire. He died and left her $1.60 million. She blew it all on drugs and gambling in 7 months. You say stupid. I say that's one hell of a 7 months. Not nearly as bad as some of these, but one of my college roommates would constantly come home with toys, like toy dinosaurs and cap guns and various children's toys, for himself, then play with them twice and forget about them, and then had to borrow money to pay our bills. Great guy, and he's since gotten better, but dang, that was baffling at the time. We need to get him and Samurai Sword Guy together. I spent the night at my friend's house when I was around 14ish, and at their house, they had I think 4 or 5 kids. I was friends with the oldest. We didn't eat any dinner at any point and we're all getting hungry. The kids asked to have some money to walk to the grocery store to grab hot dogs and stuff to make a quick cheap dinner. Mom said I only have $15 and that's my cigarette money. We all ended up not eating anything. Added, I just want everyone to know that this was almost 13 years ago and all the children are just fine. Grown up, moved out, and a few have kids of their own. Hopefully they learn to treat their children differently, but I don't exactly know. My mom, who bought a desktop in 2001 for $800 and it's still not paid off. She now owes $1,300 for a computer that doesn't even work. A person I know invested all his savings in buying Bitcoin at their peak, only to see them go down in value ever since. Generally speaking, if the major news networks are talking about the price of something, it's a bad time to buy. This guy I knew went from being a mom and dad's bill to his own because he fricked up in school. So instead of getting a cheap apartment close to campus, he picks one of the most expensive apartments in town, where no utility is included, got the cable internet add-on, got the several $100 parking pass, and continued to eat out and drink on a regular basis. You will be as shocked as I was to learn that that didn't work out and he had to move back in with his parents. Well, that will teach his parents to keep paying tuition. A 43-year-old woman I know got hooked by a Nigerian romance scam. Not only did she send this guy all her money, she flew to Nigeria and married him. He's 21 years old. She couldn't stay in Nigeria because of her job. Her intention is to get him back to our country, but he really has no intention of leaving, as she funnels all of her money to him and, I believe, helps him scam other women. He's living a pretty sweet Nigerian life. She went from living a decent life to moving into her grandmother's basement with her developmentally delayed daughter so she could send all of her money to him. If he can't immigrate, her ultimate goal is to move to Nigeria with her daughter. So I was a teller line manager in college. One day this 19-year-old kid comes in with a check for like $350K. Obviously this is unusual, so I start to chat him up to make sure he wasn't getting scammed or something. This was when the Nigerian prince scam was just starting out. Turns out his dad had died and this was the life insurance check he got. So I'm like, well, it sucks that your dad died, but at least he thought ahead to take care of you. Let me set you up with one of our advisors and if you play your cards right you'll be retired comfortably by 40 inches. Nope. He says I'm buying all my friends' cars. And he did. The worst part is he didn't even buy them good cars. He was buying okay used cars, like a 7-year-old Civic. He came in every couple days for like 3 months to get a couple cashier's checks for like $6,500 to buy each of his friends several cars. By the end of the 3 months the money was gone. That was about 15 years ago, so using quick math, rule of sevens, he'd have about $1.50 at this point. I wonder if he will ever think back and realize that he fricked up bad. Worst one yet. So this is small potatoes, but it was so consistently bottom of the barrel poor financial choices it stuck in my memory. It wasn't buying a house or anything, but even buying a sandwich he'd frick it up somehow. Worked with a woman, mid-30s with 3-4 kids. Not to judge, but she was 350 pounds and would non-stop complain they didn't have enough food to eat, wouldn't budget for groceries and then would drop $25 at a gas station for one meal's worth of garbage. Her husband was getting fast food lunches every day while they couldn't afford food for the kids, so we just feed them popsicles. I grew up poor but fed. It's not happy food, but a carton of eggs and bag of rice cost as much as popsicles and will feed them a few days. Solid chance she was just full of crap on that. At least I hope so, honestly. She saw a show she thought her husband might like, so she went and bought all the seasons box sets that day. She subscribed to every entertainment magazine I've heard of, expensive phones and phone plans, full cable package. Apartment was more than they could afford by a long shot. 1 month they were super behind, so they borrowed money from his parents, her parents and a coworker. I don't remember the numbers, but to get the idea, let's say she needed $1,000 for back bills, $1,000 for that month's bills, and borrowed $3,000. Sweet. She can get caught up and give back $1,000 she overborrowed. No hope. She called the companies and plead hardship, not using the money borrowed to pay anything, falling further behind on payments. Went on a spending spree with the extra money and bought more garbage. At the end of the month they are $5K deeper in the hole. 2 months behind on payments and things start getting shut off. Also destroyed relationship with a co-worker, but like my mama always said, never lend money you can't kiss goodbye. This is just awful. They had over $10K in credit card debt. Their father paid it off except for $500 because they were expected to contribute at least a little. They chose not to pay the remainder off. So now they have $10K in credit card debt. I spent some time in southern Afghanistan with DoD not long ago, and a guy I worked with, salt of the earth guy, do anything for you, was paying for his wife's debt for the 3rd time. First he mortgaged the house again. Second he borrowed against his retirement. Third he flew 9,000 miles to the desert to work in a war zone for the hazard pay and overtime while being woken up by sirens triggered by incoming rockets and mortars. While I made decent money, he dug out of a hole for the third time. In this case, it appears Poorest financial decision was staying with the woman he loved, the mother of his children. If you haven't been there, not Afghanistan, in love in a less than ideal place, you can't truly understand. I used to live with a bunch of friends. One of them had his girlfriend move in with us and they were both bad with money, so they didn't have a cell phone due to overdue bills. The first thing they did when they moved out was get a 2.5k sofa from a rent-to-own place. They're doing much better now that they're older, but back then most of their financial decisions were super short-sighted. Glad to hear things are better for them. My cousin got a reasonably sized inheritance and used it to buy a house in a city where he doesn't live, where he didn't move to, and where he's been unable to find a tenant to rent it. 4 years, and the house is still vacant, losing value and giving him nothing back. I had just joined the army and arrived in Texas. Lots of other new guys came with me, and for most of them, it was their first time getting big paychecks. One of my friends went out and put $0 down on a 2012 Camaro SS with a cozy 22% interest rate, giving him a monthly payment of something like $900 on like $22,000 a year income. I work with a guy who just seems to go out of his way to try and set his paychecks on fire. At first I felt bad, but now, he apparently bought a motorcycle on credit, crashed it, fixed it on credit, new to the job. He recently bought a house that is quite far from work and needs a tremendous amount of repairs. Roof pieces are coming off. Complains this wasn't noted in the inspection, but the roof is visibly in need of replacements from the pictures he showed me. The other day he mentioned something about his car, which he bought used to save some money with 200,000 miles on it. Goes on to talk about maintenance costs, then pivots to how he's trying to take off for a vacation. Yeah, so, I don't know what he wants me to say to him. I just don't know. He doesn't want you to say much. He wants you to listen to his bitch fest and say AWW that is terrible, and then he will go on talking and making the same stupid decisions. These types of people are best avoided. Listening to them is a chore and doing your actual job is a much more rewarding use of your time. After a divorce, she used the split equity from the sale of their former marital home to buy a Cadillac Escalade, then ended up in government apartment complex, on benefits, and losing the SUV because she couldn't afford to insure or gas it. Girl, you could have had 50k plus in the bank to survive until you got on your feet. You set yourself back 5 years and may never recover. He's doing great though. My girlfriend bought a timeshare last year at the California State Fair from Blue Green Resort Vacations. One of the requirements in the contract she signed was that she must make X amount of money, which she doesn't. But the saleswoman said it was okay if she had at least high credit, which she does. The saleswoman also said by signing up for this, when we get to the destination, we will get a gift card or something. When she called in later to talk specifics about the time and place for the vacation, they said she has to make X amount of money, which she doesn't. They argued that it was a requirement and she argued that it's not what the saleswoman said. She also asked about the gift card. That apparently wasn't real either. So now Blue Green Resort Vacations has my girlfriend's money, a voided contract, that their representative created, and won't issue a refund. She tried to get a refund, but their answering machine said apparently there was a hurricane in Florida where they are apparently located and it fricked their crap up. So she waited a bit and tried contacting them again after a couple weeks, since that's when the message said to contact them again. They won't respond to her and they still have her money. Roommate, now former because of this, got laid off. 50k in the bank. Proceeds to not work, on purpose, for 3 years, eating through it all. By the time it got so low that he had to pay rent with a credit card, he finally got off his lazy 41-year-old butt and got a job. I left way before that point to save myself from being hurt by that situation. He talked the whole time about doing something good with the time and money, a degree, an apprenticeship, etc. He did nothing. He sat on his butt all day every day, then on weekends he'd club, get drunk, come home and start the week over again. 3 years lost. It's definitely good to party and get it out of your system after a layoff, especially if you have the means. But don't waste it, especially when you're reaching the age where it gets harder to get new jobs. OMG, this sounds like my nightmare. I'm 37 and working my butt off to save money and invest and eventually buy a house. I'm in NYC, so we do stuff later here. So I'm planning to buy around 40. I didn't see it, but my GF told me about it soon after we started dating. She spent $700 to have somebody remove adware from her laptop. Last year a friend of mine received $1.25 million from a bad divorce. She took $500K and bought a house 4 hours away from anyone she knew because she wanted a fresh start. She quit her job, moved into her new home and started to travel. From October 2016 till April 2018 she spent $750K on cars, vacations, gifts and crap she didn't need, also to help her new BF buy land to start her alpaca farm. I helped her originally put away $500K into savings and investments, but she pulled all of the cash in there to fund her interests. So she comes to me looking for help, and like an idiot I help her. I tell her she needs to sell the house and move back closer to her family. Buy a nice 5plex I found for her and she would have about $5K cash flow every month and can live in one of the units. She loves the idea. So I wait for her to call me so we can get it all going, but don't hear from her till June. She sold the house at a $50K loss. Bought more land to help the alpaca farm. Bought a cabin to put on the land even though there is no water or power there, and just spent $10K on a trip because she needed a vacation after all the hardship of being poor for a month. Her ex must be laughing his head off. Christ. Phew, after reading this I feel a lot better about my spending habits. At least I know I'd never let myself make a 6-figure mistake. Right, that $60 video game doesn't seem so bad at all anymore. One of my friends got a loan for tuition in college, paid for his classes and had about $300 left over. So he goes to the mall and buys a samurai sword from one of those knife shops. Then he buys a box of hugs, these little juices for kids that come in small barrel-shaped plastic bottles. He proceeds to throw the hugs into the air and cut them in half with the sword in a Kroger parking lot at 11 p.m. Note: he was unemployed at the time and spent about $260 of the $300 on this parking lot slaughter fest. When money is worthless and the barbarians are at the gates, you'll be thankful for his aid and glad he chose to train. A friend who goes through a new life direction every 12-18 months depending on which video game and or anime she's currently obsessed with. Rich parents who paid her bills. She didn't even get a job until she was nearly 30. Anyway, one game obsession, though not the one you'd expect, circa 2012 or so, led her to want to be a rock star. Not have a band, not make music, just straight up rock star. Go big or go home, I guess. She lived in Austin at the time, you know, the live music capital of the world, so wanting to start a band is theoretically no big deal. Pick any street corner and swing a stick and I guarantee you'll have 2 guitars, a bass player, and a drummer by the end of the day. She didn't do any of that. No posted signs in coffee shops or the Chronicle. No hitting up college commons looking for musicians. Nothing. She instead seemed to take the "if you build it, they will come" approach and used daddy's money, bought an entire band's worth of brand new instruments. 2 guitars, a bass, a drum set, and a microphone. One of the guitars was a Flying V, for God's sake. On top of that, she couldn't play a single one of them or carry a tune in a bucket if her life depended on it. She took the occasional singing lesson when her schedule allowed, but it was sporadic at best. She did do drumline in high school marching band and insisted that and regular rock band drumming was basically the same thing. I'm really not sure what her plans were, but I watched those instruments gather dust over the coming weeks, which turned into months, which turned into years. It really made me angry because I was severely struggling financially at the time and in college, and all I wanted to do when I hung out at her apartment was smash every single one of those things out on the balcony. I think she eventually ended up selling them via Craigslist without so much as a single other band member ever recruited. My father is terrible with money and has some mental issues also. Anyway, he is flat broke, living on $600 a month social security, living in the basement of an old factory. He calls me one day to see if I will help him get this truck from a town about 80 miles away. It's a 1940 Dodge flatbed or some such that he is going to turn into his mobile art studio. He has somehow convinced his dad to loan him $1,500 for the truck and wants a ride to get it. I say no because I was fed up with his shenanigans. He convinces some fool to take him, but since he is broke he doesn't bring any more money. This truck gets like 6 miles per gallon and of course runs out of gas halfway back. He somehow gets it back home, but there is nowhere to park it, so he just parks it across the street in a private parking lot. It of course gets towed within a day, and now of course he needs to borrow money to get it out, which no one will give him at this point. So long story short, my dad spent $1,500 of his dad's money to drive a truck 80 miles. Well, my buddy kept having unprotected sex with his wife while they were in the process of getting divorced. So how he's married to someone that he hates and trying to stick it out for his son that he didn't want, while struggling to provide for the family that he can't afford. At age 70 and living off only social security, and after going bankrupt 2 years prior, my dad decides he wants a $30K pickup truck. My mom calls me in desperation. He is in process of signing paperwork. I am living in another state. I try calling him and he ignores my call. I tell my mom to bring her phone to him and put on speaker. I try to get him to stop. I ask the sales rep how they are approving a sale of a truck to a guy who can't work and is living off social security. Bull's answer. So I call the sheriff and they were great. They went over and took my dad out of the place and told him to go home and take a cool off day to think about it. I am relieved. 2 days later, my dad posts to Facebook a picture of his new truck. 6 months later, the bank repossesses the truck for lack of payments, which sends my dad into chapter 13. Ugh. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.